Every successful e-commerce store runs on the same invisible system. The problem is most people don't understand how that hidden system works. Many unaware store owners see sales coming in, revenue looks good, and they assume everything's working. But quietly, behind the scenes, there's a growing cancer, and they're actually losing their business. In this video, I show you how every successful e-commerce store actually makes money without exception. You'll learn how traffic turns into revenue and where most stores lose money, how to calculate if your ads are truly profitable, not just looking good on paper, and the simple math behind whether your store can scale or will eventually fail. Hi, I'm Brandon, and my agency helps e-commerce store owners and operators successfully grow their stores. And this illustration may help your e-commerce store make a little more sense. Think about a casino. Every game looks exciting. Cards, roulette, slot machines. But behind all of it is one thing: math. The casino doesn't care if you win or lose the next hand, because over time, the math guarantees they will make money. It's a rigged business that assures casino owners are always profitable so long as enough gamblers walk through the doors. Surprisingly, successful e-commerce works the exact same way. Every click, every visitor, every purchase in a successful store, there's a system. E-commerce as a profit funnel. So I'm going to break this down in the simplest way possible. Every e-commerce business, no matter what you sell, from boots to barbecue, whatever platform you're on, whether it's Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever, it all runs on the same basic funnel. And it looks like this. You pay for traffic, a percentage of those people buy, you spend a certain amount to fulfill, and whatever's left over after your expenses is your profit. That's traffic, revenue, expenses, and profit. That's it. It's one system, and every part of that system affects everything else. If your traffic gets more expensive, your entire business changes. If your conversion rate drops so you get fewer customers, your profits can literally disappear overnight. If your margins are thinner than you think, you can be profitable on paper and still lose money. So instead of thinking like a marketer for a second, I want you to think like an operator, because operators don't guess. They look at the numbers and they know. Let's start at the very top of this system: traffic, paid traffic. At the top, how do you get more people to your site? Yeah, traffic. That matters. But here's the problem. Traffic is actually not the goal, but profitable traffic is the goal, because every single visitor that hits your site costs you money. If you're running ads, you're often paying per click. Maybe it's $1, maybe it's $5. And here's where this gets interesting. Most people look at the cost per click and stop there. But that number by itself doesn't actually matter. What matters is what it costs you to get a customer. That's your CAC or CAC, your customer acquisition cost. So instead of thinking I pay $2 per click, you need to think in terms of how many clicks does it take to get one customer? Because if it takes you 100 clicks to get a sale and you're paying $2 per click, you just paid $200 to acquire that customer. Now let's pause for a second. If your average order value is $100 and you pay $200 per customer, you don't have a business. You have a bonfire of dollar bills. That's not good. And here's the key idea to lock in. Traffic is only valuable if you're making money. You can have the best product in the world, but if it costs you more to acquire that customer than the customer is worth, that math will kill your business every time. So let's talk about after the click now, the conversion rate. Conversion rate, the multiplier. All right, so now someone clicks. They land on your site. Now what? This is where most of your money is actually made or lost. Conversion rate is what turns traffic into customers. Let me show you what I mean. If you're paying $2 per click, then 1 out of every 100 people buys. That's a 1% conversion rate. That means it takes 100 clicks to get a customer. So your CAC is $200. But if you improve your conversion rate to say 2%, now 2 people out of every 100 buy. You just cut your CAC in half. same traffic, same ad cost, but twice the efficiency. That's why small changes here can have a massive impact on your business. Your product page, your offer, your checkout. Here's something important to understand. Improving your conversion rate is often easier than getting cheaper traffic because you control it. You can test your pages, you can simplify your checkout, you can remove friction, and every improvement compounds through your entire sales funnel. But there's one big problem. Not all customers are worth the same. And that's where your average order value comes in. Average order value, the revenue lever. All right, so now people are actually buying. Great. And here's the next question you need to ask. How much is each of those customers worth to your business? Because not all customers are created equal. Some come in and spend $30, others spend $150, maybe more. But the average order value is the average spent by each one of your customers, or your AOV. This number determines how much revenue you generate every time someone converts, on average. Let's connect this back to what we just talked about. If your conversion rate tells you how many customers you get, your AOV tells you how much each of those customers is worth. And when you combine the two, you get something really important: how much you make per visitor. Because if 2 out of 100 people buy that 2% conversion rate, and your average order value is worth $100, you're making $200 for every 100 visitors. That's also why AOV is such a powerful lever, because increasing it doesn't require any more traffic. It just means you're getting more value out of the customer with, say, bundles or upsells or free shipping thresholds. All of these are designed to increase your AOV. If you can turn a $50 order into a $100 order, your entire funnel becomes more profitable instantly, with the same traffic, the same conversion rate, but you get more revenue. And just because someone spends $100 with your store doesn't mean you actually keep $100. So the next step is where the real money is decided: margin. Margin, the profit metric. All right, this is where things can break down in most stores, because up to this point, everything looks good. You're getting traffic, people are buying, the average order value is good, and that's where many people stop. They look at their revenue, maybe their ROAS or return on ad spend, and they think, okay, this is working. But here's the reality. Revenue is not profit, not even close, because every time you make a sale, there are costs attached to it. Your product cost, your shipping, your payment processing fees, maybe your returns. Also, the huge part, fulfillment. All of those eat into your $100 order. So maybe somebody spends $100 on your site, but after all those variable costs, you might only get to keep $30 or $40. That number, whatever's left over after all those costs, is your profit margin. More specifically, your contribution margin. And this is the number that actually matters. Let's go back to our earlier example. If it costs you $100 to acquire a customer, but you only keep $40 from that sale, you're losing $60 every time you get a customer. Even though on the surface you're generating revenue, it's really a trap. A lot of store owners are operating on what are really fake margins. They look at their product cost and they ignore everything else. They forget about returns, shipping, other fees. They think they have a 50% margin, and in reality it's like 20% or lower. And that's a huge mistake. So here's the rule. If you don't know your real margin, you don't actually know your business. Because this number determines how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer, how aggressive you can be with ads, and whether scaling will make you money or will make you lose money. Now, this leads directly to the biggest misunderstanding in e-commerce, because once people have revenue and they have a rough idea of their cost, they look at one metric to judge everything: ROAS. ROAS versus profit, the big misunderstanding. All right, this is where a lot of people get misled, because once you're running ads for your store, there's one number that everyone looks at, and that's your ROAS. ROAS, again, is return on ad spend. And on the surface, it makes sense. If you spend $1 and you make $3, that's a 3x ROAS. Sounds good, right? Here's the problem. ROAS is a revenue metric. It's not a profit metric. And that difference is everything, because ROAS doesn't tell you how much money you actually keep in your business. It just tells you how much money is coming in. So let's go back to our numbers. If you spend $100 on ads and you're generating $300 in revenue, that's a 3x ROAS. What if your margin is 30%? That means from that $300, you only keep $90 in your business. And you just spent $100 to get it. So in that scenario, you actually lost 10 bucks. And this is why so many stores scale into the ground. They see a 3x ROAS and they assume they're making money, but their margins don't support that part of the business. So they're losing money on every sale. Here's the key idea you need to understand. There is a minimum ROAS you need to break even. And that number is entirely based upon the margin in your store. You have higher margins, you can be profitable at a lower ROAS. Lower margins, you need a much higher ROAS just to survive. So instead of asking, what's my ROAS, the better question is, what ROAS do I need to be profitable? Because once you know that number, you stop guessing. Now let's take all of this and see how it plays out in a real business. Case study, custom engine parts. Let me show you how this actually works in the real world. A few years ago, we had a client come to us selling customized engine parts. It was a great product. They had solid margins on every product sale, but they had one big problem. They had no reliable way to get customers. They were getting some traffic here and there, but nothing was consistent. Nothing was scalable. So we stepped in and launched Google Ads. And within a few months, we were generating a 5.3x return or 531% ROAS, which means for every $1 they spent, they were making $5.31 back. And they had a strong enough margin that that 5x return was extremely profitable. Everything worked together. And that's why it scaled. It was a system where all the numbers made sense. Now let's zoom out for a second, because when you compare this to the way many other people try to make money, this gets really interesting. E-commerce versus other investments. So once you understand this system, you start to realize e-commerce isn't just a business, it's an investment engine. Think about the way most people invest their money. They might buy some stocks or real estate, maybe some crypto. And what do all of those have in common? You put some money in and you hope it goes up. You don't actually control the outcome. You're kind of just along for the ride. But e-commerce, when it's done right, is very different, because now you have a system you can actually control. You can improve your conversion rate. You can increase your average order value. You can optimize your profit margins. You can lower your cost to acquire a new customer. And every one of those improvements directly increases your return on investment. So instead of guessing, you're engineering outcomes. Now, to be clear, this isn't easy. Things are going to break. Costs are going to change. But the difference is you're not relying on luck or the stock market. You're working with a system you can actually measure and improve over time. And when that system works, it can outperform almost anything else. And now you're putting $1 into your business, you're getting $2 back, $3 back, $5 back consistently. Let's bring this all together into one simple way to look at your business. All right, let's simplify this, because at the end of the day, your entire e-commerce business comes down to a few numbers working together. You buy traffic, a percentage of those people buy from you, they spend a certain amount for your revenue, and you keep whatever money is left over after your expenses, your profit. You got traffic, revenue, expenses, and profit. That's it. Because at the end of the day, the stores that win aren't the ones with the most traffic. They're not the ones with the coolest ads ever. They're the ones that understand their numbers and make them work. Now, if you're sitting here thinking, okay, this makes sense, but you don't fully understand how all the pieces of the e-commerce business fit together, you need to watch this next video here. Because in that video, I break down the full basics on how an e-commerce business works from the ground up. You can see how everything connects at the ground level. Click right here and watch that video. All the best.